have this opportunity to speak to all of you here today. So I know I'm just one representative that's speaking, but the actual club itself, mashallah, is actually quite large. And Dr. Khan has done a beautiful job with leading it. So if you are interested in learning more about Blooming Rose and Rotary Club activities, you can feel free to talk to any one of us afterwards, inshallah. So with that being said, I did want to talk a little bit about a difficult topic. This is not something that we normally talk about in a lot of masajid. This is something that I feel is a bit more taboo, discussing this, because it comprises of a lot of difficult conversations. Difficult conversations as a son, and difficult conversations to hear as a parent, because there's no easy solution to any of this. There's no 1, 2, 3 ABC fix to these problems. It's very, very nuanced, and there's a lot of different layers to it. So I'm going to try my best, inshallah, to give you guys as much of an overview of it as I can. What we're going to be talking about, the topic for today, inshallah, is going to be bridging this gap between parents and between children. And bridging this gap when you are from a different country, from a different time, from a different place, from a different mindset, and your kids are growing up in a different time, in a different place, with a different mindset. And they don't see things the way you see it, and you don't see things the way they see it. And the two of you, both parent and children, cannot see eye to eye on this. So we're going to be talking about a different type of gap to bridge. And the bridge we're going to talk about is a generation gap, a gap between parent and child, a gap between your years of growing up and what life was like back home, and life for us here now in the United States, and struggling with this. So for myself, I know you guys heard my bio. Yes, I am a psychiatrist. I went to medical school. I am a doctor, alhamdulillah, but it's irrelevant to today's conversation, because we're not here to talk about something medical or clinical. We're here to talk about life and a life experience. So before I even went to med school, before any of this even happened for myself, I was born as just Omar, and my mom, Ammi, is from Islamabad, Pakistan, and my dad is from Bangalore, India. And so I'm half Pakistani and half Indian, and my parents met here in New York, and they got married here in New York, and then I was born. And I am the firstborn son of my family, so I am the eldest of 4. I have 2 little sisters and 1 little brother, and amongst all of my cousins from my Dadi's side, I am the eldest of all of my cousins on my Dadi's side. So I was the first in that family, the first grandchild. The hardest thing about this is what it's like to be an eldest child and what it's like to be an eldest child to an immigrant family. Because I don't know how to describe it to you, my mom and dad never put this kind of direct pressure on me, that we left everything in our home country. We left back home and we came here to seek financial security. We came to seek opportunity. We came to seek a better economy. We sought a better future and a better life for ourselves. That was already understood. It didn't need to be said. And the pressure on me didn't need to be said either. My parents never forced me to become a doctor or go to medical school. This was something that I already had in the back of my mind, that you either do this or you're considered a failure. There's only a couple of careers you can have in this field, being the son of an immigrant family, especially a brown immigrant family, which is you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be an engineer, or a disappointment. And this is it. This is the entire career path open for you and able to choose. You don't choose anything else because there is nothing else that's financially feasible for you. There's no way my mom and dad and my grandparents would uproot and tear out from the roots their entire life back home and come here if there wasn't the promise of something better. So whatever career you as a child have to pursue needs to somehow be better, needs to somehow be more lucrative, needs to somehow be like fancier, needs to somehow be more stable for that. And that's not with my parents saying anything to me. So there's a lot of pressure on my shoulders for this. And the second big thing is the pressure to succeed and the pressure of knowing that if I mess up and I fail, it's not me, Omar, failing to achieve something or to do something or to get into medical school or to become a doctor or do whatever. My failure becomes my parents' failure. And my parents' failure becomes their grandparents' failure. The failure of uprooting and leaving back home and coming to America, that entire decision becomes a failure. If the child, if me, myself, if I don't make it, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, if I don't achieve what I'm supposed to achieve, if I don't get the paycheck that my family is hoping for, that would anchor us here, that this is the right decision. We made the right call doing this. And so there's a tremendous pressure on me to do this, unspoken pressure to do this. The second thing I'm going to talk about, we're talking about finances and job, but I want to put that to the side. The second conversation to have is about culture. And this is something that I have to tell you, which is if you listen to me speak right now, you'll notice that I don't have an accent. I don't speak with an Indian accent. I don't speak with a Pakistani accent. I have no accent. This is just an American accent. Because I'm born and raised in New York. I'm born and raised in America. I went to school my entire life here in America. So everything I have learned, everything I've experienced, everything I've watched, all the people I've talked to, everyone at school, my teachers, everything I've done is all American. The only dose of back home that I would get would be at the masjid, because my masjid, Masjid Hamza, where I had my childhood masjid, was an Indo-Paki masjid. So a lot of Indians and Pakistanis were in that masjid, a lot of Bengali folk too there, and my culture would be here. What you're looking at right now, this is my taste of culture, which is being amongst you guys, listening to the language, hearing uncles sit and talk with each other, hearing the politics of back home, what they're talking about. But I don't understand this stuff. I have no idea what's going on back home because I'm not from there. It's not my thing. I'm not attached. My parents didn't bring me back home to Pakistan and India every single summer for me to get the taste of the language and the taste of the culture and to know that this is where you come from, this is who you are. I didn't have that. So for me, there was a mismatch between how my parents were envisioning that their son would speak Hindi, would speak Urdu, would speak with fluency and would connect back home with that, and who I am now, which is I'm not. I am a coconut in that I'm brown and hairy on the outside, but crack me open, look on the inside, I'm milky white. I'm literally just a white guy from Long Island. But I look like you do and I talk like, this. But truthfully speaking, I'm very different from where you are. When I went back home to Pakistan, the first time I went back to Pakistan that I could remember, I was 26 years old when I went back home. And when I went back home to Islamabad to meet my family as a 26-year-old, we're talking 2.5 decades between being an American and going back home. And when I went back home, I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt that this is so alien to me being here. And they're all sitting here, my cousins, my family back home, and I'm like, I don't feel like I belong here with you guys. But it's weird because when I grew up here in America as a kid, Ammi and Abu really made it a point that you're from Pakistan, you're from India, and you're Muslim. And because of that, I go to a school full of gore log, full of white people, and I think to myself, I don't really belong here either. So I don't feel like I belong in this white school. And when I go home to Pakistan, I don't feel like I belong here either. I'm not brown enough to be back home, and I'm not white enough to be here in America. So I feel like I'm lost. I'm in this weird limbo loop where I don't know who I am and I don't know what I am. I don't know what good Muslim means because most of the Muslims that I knew that I was growing up with were experimenting with a whole bunch of stuff. For most of the guys my age, when we were in youth group and all that stuff, going outside after Taraweeh and smoking weed was like a very common thing. This is what they did. It's just what we do. Hookah on like a Saturday night, everybody went and did that. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is what American Muslims are like. It's weird to me. I go back home to Pakistan, and in Pakistan over there, it's pretty much the same culture. It's only over there, they love anything American, because for them it's exciting when something's American. And over here, it's not exciting, it's just regular life. Being Pakistani or being Indian or being Desi is actually very exotic here. It's a weird kind of thing that I realized, that when I went there back home, I was wearing shalwar kameez, I was wearing a topi, I was looking the part, and they would tell me, what is wrong with you? No one dresses like this here. The cool thing is to be American here. It's to not be this. It's almost like they were ashamed of being themselves. They wanted to be anything but themselves. They want to be American. And I come here and I think to myself, why do you want to be like this? I don't even like this when I'm here. But I feel ashamed to wear a shalwar kameez here. Because over here you get looked at, you get judged. You're a fob. You're not actually given respect and honor and dignity when you dress that way and act that way. So what's the way to fit in here? The way to fit in here is to act like the way they act. To drop an N-word, to drop an F-bomb, to curse, to have a certain swag to you, to speak a certain way, have a certain manner of talking. It's like street, you just act street and you're good, you're accepted, you're cool. Therefore, I feel wanted and I feel welcome. But if I do that, then my parents think that I'm an alien. Something's wrong with me. I'm like this bad American child. You're not proper Pakistani, you're not proper Indian, you're not the way we envisioned you would be. And for me, I'm torn in the middle. This is the gap I'm describing. This is the difference in opinion. This is the difference in my parents' perspective, my grandparents' perspective, and mine. I cannot see things the way my parents see things. Fundamentally, I cannot. I can't. I never left my entire life and went to another country and replanted myself and re-envision my life. I never did that. I don't even think I could handle that. My parents made a very difficult decision. I cannot make that decision. I don't think I have the capacity or the ability to make that decision. However, I'm doing something my parents never did, which is growing up here. My parents never went to an elementary school here, they never went to a middle school here. My parents never had to deal with the problems and issues that I've had to deal with. My parents never had to grow up with Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. They never had any of this stuff. I'm growing up with that. I have to deal with this. I have to figure out how to manage this stuff and how to remain or stay Muslim throughout everything that's happening when most of my friends are leaving Islam. And this is what I'm dealing with. This is a struggle my parents do not grasp the way I grasp it. So they and I see things differently. And it's upsetting. It's very upsetting because I want to connect, but I cannot. I speak a language, I speak in a way, and I have a perspective they don't have. And my parents come from back home. They have a perspective, they have a way of talking, they have a way of thinking, they have a way of feeling that I don't have. And so there's a miscommunication. There's two different languages being spoken. Yeah, we can speak the same thing. That's not what I'm talking about. Talking English to my parents and my parents talking in Urdu or Hindi. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is two different languages of experience that are being said here. And then there's a misconnect over here. And so my parents get frustrated. My parents get angry. My parents get upset. My parents are like, you are not the kid we were hoping you would be. We were hoping you'd be like us. You'd talk like us. You'd walk like us. You'd act like us. You'd dress like us. You'd behave like us. And I look at my parents and I think to my parents, why can't you be more like me? You're here in America, you live in America, you drive an American car, you live in an American city, you work in an American job. Everyone around you speaks English. Everyone around you acts a certain way, is a certain way. Why can't you be this way? And so we can't meet in the middle. And this is the frustration and struggle that we have. It's a lost cut connection between us. And it hurts, it really does, because I can't just, the solution to this is not just have sabr and read Quran and pray, because that doesn't solve any of this. We already do that as a family. What's linking us together is our deen, is our Islam. But even the Islam itself is different because my parents have a cultural perception of Islam and I have an American perception of Islam. For me, the deen is something you have to fight for because in this country, it's not given to you. For mom and dad back home, deen is everywhere. Literally, no matter where you are. You go back home, there's a masjid on every block. Everyone knows that the adhan goes off, everyone hears it, everyone prays. There's no problem with being Muslim back home. There's a problem being Muslim here. So even the Islam and the way we perceive Islam is different. I grew up in a post 9/11 world. For me, it was all about hiding the fact that you're Muslim and not being Muslim. For my mom and dad, it was a different struggle. For them, they didn't see it the way I saw it. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is the generational gap that I'm describing. This is the connect that's needed but can't really happen. So when someone tells you, I would listen in the masjid, I remember I would sit, and the khatib would talk about, in Islam you have to obey your parents. You can't say uff to your parents or utter a word against your parents. You have to respect your parents, obey your parents, listen to what your parents say. Unless your parents tell you something explicitly haram, in that case you don't listen to them. But in every other instance you listen to them, you follow them. And I thought to myself, okay, so being a good son, being a good person is listening to your parents no matter what, and obeying your parents and following your parents. But this is hard for me to do because my parents don't see things the way I see things. My parents don't have the experience that I have. I'm not saying I'm smarter or better or more experienced than they are. What I'm saying is it's different. There's something different here. And so this is a difficulty that I'm trying to experience over here. And so most of my friends have the same experience with this. All of us growing up, anyone listening to me knows what I'm talking about because your parents don't understand it the way you understand it. It's different. So it's hard to do that. It's not an easy thing of just obey them and you're good. That's not an easy thing to do. And same thing for parents when they hear a khutbah or they hear a speech about the rights of children in Islam, that you have to be there to support and help your children no matter what. It's hard for them too. Because my parents and our parents' generation only sees it one way, for that. I'll give a really powerful example of this, which is when your child comes home and your child brings you a spouse or brings you someone that says, I'm in love with this person, and it's someone you completely did not expect for this. And now all of a sudden you're faced with something very raw and real, which is your child doesn't even marry into your own culture. Your child is marrying out of your culture because your child never had the connection to your culture. So you are fighting for something your child never had or never experienced. And now it's a fight between you and your child over what you want them to be and who they actually are. And this is my struggle. This is the struggle I'm born with. This is the struggle that I have. So I don't have anything flowery to give you. There's no magic thing that I can give and all of a sudden it's solved. What I will give is two pieces of perspective. The first is for parents, and then the second perspective is for youth. who have grown up the way I've grown up. The first thing I will say is towards the youth, and the first message I have for you guys is that I understand the struggle, and I know what you're feeling, and I know what you're thinking, because I am you. I grew up the way you did, and I know what you're thinking, and I know what you're feeling. And there's a lot of difficulty, a lot of stress, a lot of burden, a lot of pressure, a lot of misunderstanding. And when you come home, the way I grew up, I don't know if you guys feel the same way as youth, but the way I grew up was there was an Omar at home and there's an Omar outside home. There's an Omar at school, and then there's an Omar when he comes home in front of his parents. And these are two different Omars. And this is not to say that this is like a concept of being a munafiq, that you're two-faced. I don't want you to interpret it that way, because that's not the way the interpretation is here. This is not being two-faced. This is having two different versions of me. There's the version of me when I come home, and the version of me when I come home is the cultural version of me. It's what I want my parents to see and think. That I'm respectful. I say, Hanji, of course, absolutely, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I'm going to be a very good child. I'm going to be very obedient, very respectful, because this is what pleases you. And this is what I think helps me survive at home. That's who I am. Then there's the me when I step outside. There's the me when I'm at school. There's the me when I'm in class. There's the me when I'm on the street. There's the me when I'm with other guys. That's the me that's more true to the me, because I'm not pretending. I'm pretending in the other direction. I'm pretending to be accepted here. I don't have to put on a performance. I just have to be me, myself. And my parents don't know this, but they don't know this version of me. And my friends don't know this version of me. And so this gap for a child creates a split in their mind between the child you see and the child they are. And the scary thing is that if you give this another 5, 10, 15, 20 years, your child becomes someone that you don't even recognize anymore. It's like you have lost touch with them all of a sudden. You see them growing up in front of you, but emotionally and psychologically speaking, they're far different than anything you could imagine for yourself. And so is there any wonder to you or a shock to you when your child comes home and tells you, I don't really care to marry someone from Bangladesh. I don't care for it. I have no strong emotions for that. I really don't care. There's this girl from the Dominican Republic. She's a convert, mashallah, she converted to Islam. I would actually prefer her because she grew up here. She had the same immigrant struggle I did. She's the same American struggle I have. She also has the same struggle with her faith and her deen, trying to become Muslim in a country that doesn't show any happiness towards Muslims. She and I have more in common than I have with you in common. And for you, it's a shock to hear this as a parent. But the truth of the matter is that it makes perfect sense to that child. Perfect sense to that child. This is something that I can tell you from my own experience, which is when my friends ask me and they're like, will you marry someone back home, someone from Pakistan or someone from India? My clear answer was no, I'm not. I have nothing in common, other than how I look and where I come from, my genes, the genetics that I have nothing in common with them. They grew up in a different country. They grew up with a different perspective, a different experience. They don't know what life is like here. How am I supposed to connect with them? They're gonna get along with my parents, but they're not gonna get along with me. And my parents aren't marrying them, I am. So no, I don't connect here. This isn't something that I feel a click is. I don't actually have any attraction here, and there's nothing that I want for that. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I didn't marry Desi at all. I'm very happy to say, alhamdulillah, that my wife is from Palestine. She's Palestinian. And like me, her parents came here from Palestine, and they settled here in America, and she grew up American, and she had the same exact struggle that I did. Same exact identical. Only for her, it's the Arab culture, and for mine, it's the Desi culture. But even then, there's a lot of similarity between the culture. I have more in common with my Palestinian wife than I have in common with my grandparents' and parents' struggle. And that's a scary thing to say, but it's the truth. That's the truth. This was a difficult thing for a family to accept. It's a very difficult thing for a family to accept. Now the message is more for the parents, which is a decision was made, a very tough decision was made to leave home and to come to America, to come to New York. You made this decision, or your parents made the decision, or your siblings, whoever, someone in your family or you made the decision to do this. And in making this decision, some big thing happened. And the big thing that happened was your child will not grow up in Bangladesh. Your child will not have a pure, organic Bengali upbringing. They're not, because they're American. They're born here. Or they were born there and came here at a very early age. They are, in all effects, American. And the decision you made to move, this is the effect of that decision. They're gonna be, your kid will be different. Your kid will think differently, feel differently, experience things differently. Your kid will grow up with a completely different generation. Your kid will be a child of the internet. And for you, this was an invention that got created in the latter years of your life. And it's something you're still trying to come to grips with and grasp. But your child is fully locked and loaded into that for themselves. This is the difference. So I'm not saying that you've lost your kid. I think what I'm saying is that you have to think differently about how to connect with your child. There's a difference in that. And there's something that I will give a shout out to my dad for, mashallah, alhamdulillah. My dad is someone who, for him, the way he and I connected was through gaming. My dad got into gaming. My dad bought consoles. My dad was a big gamer, and me and him were able to connect over this. It was a mutual thing that he and I were able to bond over for this. I cannot connect with my dad over being Indian. I can't connect with my dad over life in Bangalore. I can't connect with my dad over like the deeper parts of our culture, or like the transition of what happened during British independence, and what happened during the entire transition, the entire generational trauma that my dad and my grandparents hold. I cannot connect over that. But I can connect over this, which is something American. And my dad, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him and protect him and increase him, has helped to try and bridge that gap and connect with me. My dad is big into sports. He watches the New York Yankees. He's a big baseball fan. He's a huge fan of watching basketball. He's into sports. This is a way that he and I can connect. There's little things that we can connect over for this. My dad has similar frustrations towards like white people and towards like just living here in New York. I can connect with that. It's about finding something similar and making a connection. It might seem weak to you, but to your child, it means the world. Believe me, it means the world to your kid to do this. If you see your kid gaming on a console, you see your kid like playing on like Switch, or if you see your kid on like a Steam or playing online, or like watching a Twitch stream, or whatever it is, if you see your kid on TikTok or whatever, don't be ignorant to this. Actually plug yourself into this world. And yes, it might not be something you grasp or understand, but that's okay. Make the effort to do that, because it means a lot. The most important memories I have are memories of my dad and I doing things together that I truly loved, and I knew for my dad it was difficult or weird for him, but he connected with me over it. That was huge for me. Those are the memories I hold on to. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls my dad back, and my dad is no longer here, these are the things that I'm going to remember about my dad. Will I remember the cultural stuff? Probably not. Am I going to remember the whole thing of like, you know, I came from India and we came to this country and we sacrificed all this? That's not really going to be something I want to hold. In fact, that'll cause me guilt. I'd rather not hold that. I'd rather hold on to something that makes me feel good. It makes me feel wanted. It makes me feel loved. It makes me feel like you made a good decision, Dad. We're here together in this country and I want you to bond with me. That I will hold on to. So for you as parents, as I'm talking to you, this is your struggle and this is your difficulty. This is not easy. There's no easy thing I can tell you. But what I will tell you is like, make the effort. Make the effort to connect with your kid. Make the effort to connect with what your kid is connected to. If you have no idea what your kid is doing on the internet, get yourself on the internet and get educated about this so you can start to understand and learn the entire world your kid is growing up in. You can't be ignorant of this stuff anymore. You've got to like push forward, and your age is not an excuse for this. You know, it really isn't. For me, it's the same thing. Like, I grew up when AOL was invented, the internet was invented, and like chats were invented. And for me, it's a weird thing to see Gen Z kids doing weird dances on TikTok. I find that super cringe. It's hard for me to connect with. I am a youth, and it's hard for me to connect with that because I find it weird and cringe. But like, you have to make an effort. You have to do something to help connect with that. So for me, I try to connect with the youth, even though for me, there's a gap even between me and them. There's a gap. But you make the effort because it means so much to them to have that connection. So the solution I have for you guys is going to be a difficult one, which is for parents. Find a means or ways to connect with your child through what your child is engaged in and what your child is doing. And if you don't understand, have your child help you to better understand this. And for a kid, honestly speaking, I know it's difficult and it's tough, and you truly believe that your parents are on a different planet than you are, and it's hard for them to understand where you're coming from, what you're doing. It just feels very authoritative, and it feels like they're just yelling at you and shouting at you and putting things on you, and you don't really know why or where it's coming from. What I can tell you is that your parents have had a struggle and a difficulty that you cannot fathom. You can't fathom what it's like to make the sacrifice and struggle that your parents made. And for them, they are struggling. There's a lot of difficulty they have. And it's hard for a kid to grasp this until they get older. At this age, for myself, I look at my parents and I see what my parents have been through, and I deeply respect them. I didn't when I was younger, but I understand it now. I get what they went through. My parents went through something deeply, like, I cannot do that. If you ask me to get up, leave New York, pack all my stuff, leave, go to another country and start brand new in another country, and then raise a kid in another country, I cannot do this. I can't do this. I'm incapable of doing something my parents did. And so there's a respect that I have for that generation, for the sacrifice that my parents made. That's something I would give to the kids as my advice, which is it's difficult now, but have a semblance of respect for where your parents are coming from, and at the same time, try your best to help connect with your parents over this. As difficult as it is for them to connect with you, it's just as difficult for you to connect with them. So find a way and find a means to connect with them. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't care about sports. It's something I've never cared about. My dad would watch the game, and I'm sitting there going like, all right, this is whatever. Okay, I guess this is fine. I'd rather be gaming right now, but okay, I guess you're going to watch this and all that. But for me, it's an important thing. I will ask my dad, hey, there's a Yankee game on. Do you want to come with me? Do you want to watch? Because for me, I might not be invested in it, but I know he is. And it's a way for me to connect with him over this. If my dad was super into cricket, I would try to be like, hey, cool, I'll sit with you. We'll watch a cricket game together. You know, Bangladesh is playing? Okay, I don't know anything about this, but sit, teach me. Teach me what a wicket is. Teach me what, teach me what a century is. Teach me this. And now you'll see that you're connecting with your parent in a way your parent didn't even think that you would connect with them over this stuff. And believe me, for them, the most important thing is the feeling that their child loves them and is connected to them. This is how you speak each other's language. You find the similar words in that language and you connect to that. And the similar words and beats are what you can bond over for that. Oftentimes, you're not going to have a kid initiate this. This has to be the parent initiating and then the kid responding. If this is something that's very, very difficult to do, the last piece of advice I'm going to give you is the advice that's my own. This is professional, which is if there's a very serious split in your family, there's serious dysfunction in your family, your child is struggling with something mental health related, or you are struggling with something mental health related, you're suffering from anxiety, you're suffering from depression, or suffering from the fact that I've lost my child and I don't know how to reclaim my child. Or my child doesn't feel connected to the family at all whatsoever, zero, there's no connection for that. My child has lost a sense of their culture, lost a sense of themselves, and is losing their deen. This is like an extreme example, but a very common one, unfortunately. This is where I would recommend professional help. So for myself, I'm a Muslim mental health professional, I'm a psychiatrist. It's my job to give therapy, to give counseling, and to help couples, to help individuals, to help families heal and bond over this stuff. So if you find particular difficulty, if you're struggling and you don't know what to do for your kid, and you're just, as parents, lost, my recommendation is to get yourself into counseling, get yourself into therapy. There is no sharam, there's no shame in seeking this. If your kid walked outside and slipped on ice and fell and broke their arm, the first thing you would do is get that kid to an ER or get that kid to an urgent care. Get them a splint, get them a cast, get them painkillers, get them crutches, get them every bit of medical help you can get to heal that arm. If your kid is suffering from a wound that is emotional, their heart is wounded, or their mind is wounded, why do you not treat it the same way? Why is a broken bone more important to you than your child's heart? It's the same organ. Allah created it in the same way. Treat it the same. Which is if your child is wounded, if your child is hurt, if your child is going through a struggle or a difficulty or is going through anxiety or depression or just cannot talk to you, there's no communication, let's work towards that. The same way you seek a doctor's help is what you do now. Same concept, you seek a doctor's help. You talk to a counselor, you talk to a therapist. We have a plethora, there's a bunch of Muslim mental health professionals who speak Bangla and are available here in New York, and you can talk to you and your kids or you and your wife and actually start to take steps towards building and improving and patching up the wounds and the hurt that is in your family, between yourselves. So that's my last piece of advice that I would give in that regard. How am I in time? Am I good on time? I think. Yes, okay, that's what I was figured. So it'll be question and answer. So I think I'm right around like the half-hour point for myself. So I'm going to conclude with this, which is I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and preserve each and every one of you. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate the rank and status of every parent who is listening to me, and I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the sacrifices you have made as a parent, the sacrifices that were emotional, the sacrifices that were from your land, your home, your connection to back home, the sacrifices you made leaving your family and leaving your friends to come here, the sacrifices you've been making for years in this country, trying to get yourself a sense of financial stability and rooting yourself again. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept every good deed and effort you have done in building the foundation for a community in which there was no community when you got here. And that Allah elevate your rank and status and grant you a sadaqah jariyah for every sacrifice that you have done. And I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mend your heart and turn your heart closer towards your kids and help you to connect better with your children so that all the work and effort you have done, all the sacrifices you've made are not lost on them for that. And you are respected and you're remembered for that. For the youth, I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you to mend what is torn in your heart and in your mind. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to combine the different versions of you the version of you at home, the version of you in school, the version of you with your friends, all these different parts of you that make you feel like your mind is split into 1,000 pieces and you don't know who you are or what you even are, but you know what to pretend to be when you're home. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually mend all the different pieces of yourself so you can feel whole again, that you can feel yourself again, that you can feel loved, wanted, and you can feel a sense that you are in the right place doing the right thing. And I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate you in rank as youth and remove from you your fear, your insecurity, your vulnerabilities, your anxiety, your depression, the fear you have of disappointing your parents, the fear you have of failing your parents, the fear you have of your parents' wrath. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to turn your heart closer towards them and to heal the wounds you have between you and your parents and help you to connect better with your parents in whatever way you feel is best for you, inshallah. And I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep every single one of you as youth on Siratul Mustaqim. And Allah protect and preserve your iman and protect and preserve your future so you can become the light of your parents' eyes and actually become everything your parents have envisioned for you. Maybe not exactly what they predicted, but you'll be ultimately something that will be a source of sadaqah jariyah for your parents. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and preserve all of us and protect and preserve this community, and Allah lift all of us up and reunite every single one of us on Yawm al-Qiyamah under the shade of His arsh, and that Allah accept us into the highest levels of His gardens. Jazakallah khair, guys. That's pretty much the gist of what I'm going to say. And from here, we're going to have a Q&A. Inshallah, how much time do I have? 30 minutes? Okay, that's perfect. Cool, alhamdulillah. So this is a very tough topic to talk about. So generally speaking, when it comes to Q&A, I prefer it to be discreet. It's a bit hard to do that, but I guess if you have something you want to ask out loud, you absolutely can. I have no problem with that. If you have something to write with, or you want to submit something that's more private, you can do that too. I have no problem with doing that. I don't know if we have the ability for them to do that right now, but usually I put like a QR code up so you can type on your phone. But if you don't have that, you can just raise your hand and speak out, and then I'll answer your questions, inshallah, and then we can wrap up the night for that. So jazakallah khair, guys. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Omar Shareef, for your beautiful advice for the parents and teachers. Before Minhas take over the phone about the questions, I have one question. As you have heard, maybe directly or indirectly, we have a problem with the substance abuse among the kids, among the children using different drugs. And as a matter of fact, about 89 youth life was sacrificed, means they died with the substance abuse. So how we can protect our generation from this this epidemic of drugs and other substance abuse?
Man, that's a really tough question. That's actually not an easy question to answer. I want to give a shout out to JMC Youth though. This was, I forgot when exactly. I think it was like last year summer. I was invited to come speak at JMC, and I went downstairs, and we had actually a full day lecture. I think it was like 2-3 hours almost, on substance use and addiction. And in my lecture, I talked about everything. I talked about like nicotine, I talked about vaping, I talked about marijuana, I talked about CBD, THC, K2, I talked about opiates, fentanyl, Xanax sticks, like coke. I could name it, whatever drug I had that I could think of that was important, I talked about it. So we did have this lecture and we did talk about this here. My recommendation is, when it comes to drug use and like tackling the concept of drug use and addiction, a few things. First and foremost, it should not be that an entire masjid system as massive as JMC has one lecture for an hour and a half, one day out of an entire year on this subject, because it's not enough, and that's not how you actually address a problem or issue at all whatsoever about this topic. More importantly than this is that there needs to be something that's more recurring, and there needs to be something that actually involves the elderly in this, meaning that I cannot be lecturing to the youth about this stuff and ignoring the other like 80% of the people that are here at JMC, because drug use isn't created out of a vacuum. A kid doesn't just pick up a blunt off the floor, smoke it, and think, oh my God, I love this, I want to do this the rest of my life. It doesn't work like that. Generally speaking, substance use and addiction tends to be what we classify as a mental illness, and the reason why it's a mental illness is because it's rooted in, the root of it comes from a source of trauma, a source of pain, a source of depression or anxiety or a struggle or something internally that someone is struggling with. And for them, they're seeking an escape, or they're seeking a way to get away from what they're feeling, and so drugs give them the escape that they're looking for. So for me, the problem isn't the drug, actually. Truthfully speaking, the problem isn't the drug. The problem is not here. This is not the conversation. The conversation needs to be what led this person to even use to begin with. This is the problem we have. And the problem we have is a very clear one, which is we as a community, as Muslims, do not talk about this. We stigmatize this, and we shame, guilt, and embarrass the people that actually use this. So a quick example of this. This is probably the best example I can think of, which is from the Sunnah itself, the example that we have from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in which I believe there was a man who had come into the masjid. He stumbled into the masjid, and he was drunk, he was drinking alcohol. He unzips his pants, and he urinates, he pees inside the masjid. And so the Sahaba see this, and what would you guys, if you had someone walk in through those glass doors over there, stumble in, punch drunk, smelling like the stenches of alcohol, he unzips his pants, and he pees in the corner over there, half of you in the room would get up and straight up jump this man. You would beat him senseless, and you drag him outside. And that is the solution we have. Would you be wrong in doing this? Technically speaking, no, you would not, because you're protecting your community, you're protecting your masjid, you're protecting the izzat and the honor and the dignity of your community, and you have no idea what this person is capable of, and you don't want him hurting you or anyone else. Technically speaking, you've done the right thing. The example from the Sunnah is that the Sahaba were ready to jump this man and beat him, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stopped them, and what he said was, let him finish urinating. When he's done, clean it, wait until he's sober, sit him down, and actually have a conversation with this man about that. What is your problem? Why are you drinking? What's causing you to drink? What made you stumble in? What made you decide to come here to a masjid of all places to do this? And what do you know? Turns out that if you have someone suffering from substance addiction or suffering from drug use, if you actually treat them like a human being and welcome them in instead of guilting or shaming or struggling with them and shoving them out, turns out you'll actually help to fix the problem. And so the problem here is when you have a youth who is using something, either they have like a vape pen, or maybe their vape has like marijuana in it, or maybe for them it's like hookah, because for them that's what everybody does, or perhaps for them it's fentanyl, or perhaps it's opiate use, or perhaps they lace whatever they're smoking with, their spliff or their blunt with whatever it is they're using. For them, it's about the high, and the high is an escape, and the escape is from them not being heard, not being understood, not being wanted, not being accepted. So the problem here is not the blunt, the problem here is the fact that they are unloved, unwanted, disrespected, don't have a voice, don't have a presence, and don't feel like they belong. That's your problem. You want to fix drug use, you fix that problem. This is where we start, which is if I had a drug problem, if I suffered from something, if I came in and I was high, would I be welcomed in this masjid? Would you allow me to come in and sit and have a conversation with you? Would you allow me to stand in salah next to you when I'm actually smelling the way I'm smelling? Would you treat me like a human being and understand that I'm suffering or struggling with something? I think the answer is obvious. The answer what I'm going to give you is the answer that any masjid would give you, which is no. Obviously not. Get your butt out. You don't belong here. You don't want you here. You're stinking up our masjid. You're bringing down the entire place of, if we let you in, God knows whoever else want to let in through this masjid to come inside here. This is a place of sanctity. It's a place of sanctuary. This is not a place for you. And this is the problem I have fundamentally with our community, which is why the drug problem is so bad the way it is, which is that we have created a community, we've created masajid that are country clubs for the spiritually rich. Country clubs for the spiritually rich. This is like a privilege to be here in this masjid, instead of what the masjid was originally designed to be. And a masjid is designed to be a hospital for the spiritually sick. We have created a country club where the only people allowed in here are the elite Muslims. These are the Muslims who look the part, be the part, act the part, have the big beard, wear their topi, wear the shalwar kameez or wear the thobe, pray the way they're supposed to pray, speak Arabic the way they're supposed to speak Arabic, or belong and sense they feel like they're here. This is who is allowed in. The ones that are not allowed in is if a youth comes in, he has a tattoo. If a youth comes in, he doesn't have like a proper way of like dressing. If a youth comes in, torn pants, whatever it is he's wearing, these are the people we don't allow in. Which for me breaks my heart, because that youth coming in who is struggling with an addiction or struggling with dress or struggling with their deen or their Islam, this is the perfect place for them to be, only they don't find welcome here. So where do they go? Who do they talk to? What do they do? They leave. They go someplace where they are accepted. Where are they accepted? Their dealer accepts them. So for them, it's an easy conversation. It's actually quite a nice conversation between you and your dealer. You actually have a human conversation. You can actually get a connect here that you won't get here. Therefore, I'd rather talk to my dealer than talk to any one of you, because they'll at least listen to me. You won't. You don't accept me, you don't listen to me. And even if I speak nonsense, it doesn't matter. I don't feel accepted here. I'm not good enough, I'm not Muslim enough, and I don't feel like I'm spiritual enough. So you guys have shunned me and Allah has shunned me. Therefore, what is the point and purpose to anything? What I'm describing to you is depression. That's what depression looks like. And how do I solve my depression? I don't get help, because help isn't offered here. JMC does not have a mental health program here. Therefore, where do I go for my mental health? I don't know where to go for mental health. So what do I do to escape it? How do I escape it? Drugs. That's what I do. The example that I'm giving for JMC is the example that we have to take from the Black Muslim community, which is for them, they understood that this was a fundamental problem, that enough men and women in our community, brothers and sisters, have died, that we need to actually do something about this. You can't wait for the next janazah and just have like a speech about this and then think it's over. We're done, problem solved. All of a sudden, magically, every youth is gonna step outside and throw their blunt in the garbage and like throw their vapes out and be like, we're done, we're finished. MashaAllah, totally sober community. It doesn't work like that. The way it works is you do what the Black Muslim community did, which is they actually had Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous meetings in the masjid. The masjid was where other people, non-Muslims, would come to actually sit and get treatment and help. And what do you know? When you sober them up, they actually learned to love the community and love you, and they actually started converting because you gave them something they couldn't find anywhere else. You know who does this really, really well outside the Black Muslim community? The Christian community does this amazingly well. Do you know where a lot of these meetings are held? Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. Do you know where Muslims go when they need help with addictions? They go to a church, because the church offers it and the masjid doesn't. Name me a Muslim community that has this. Give me a single Bengali community that offers mental health halakas or offers substance treatment and addiction halakas regularly, not just Omar Shareef shows up once a year to blab about this for an hour and then leaves. There is no community, it doesn't exist. So my solution to the drug problem is I have to point towards the board and to the elderly, which is give the space, create the space, and then my finger to is with your youth, which is if the elders won't give you that space, create the space yourself. If JMC Youth has a problem with this, you know yourselves best, make sure you gear your halakas towards addiction, gear your halakas towards drug use, gear your halakas towards what a youth is generally struggling with and needs from you. That's what I'd recommend. These are my solutions for this. It's not an easy solution, it's a very difficult solution, but it's a start for that. I think JMC could be a shining example of this. You guys could actually be the ones that start this, and every other community can then follow you on your example for this. That's where you start. You start with that. So that'll be my answer. That's a very long question, answer, but this is my 2 cents on that problem. It really breaks my heart, because believe me, I grew up, I knew what my brothers were struggling with and what they're suffering from. A lot of my good friends that I was growing up with fell into this and started using and destroyed their lives as a result. They're still Muslim, they're still around, but they don't show up here anymore. They don't come here, they don't pray here. There's no acceptance here. You don't find them here, and that's what breaks my heart, which is this is the one place they should be. They should be here. This is the one place they belong. They belong in the house of Allah, because the house of Allah is where you get rahmah and treatment for these conditions. The only problem is that Allah is welcoming of them, the Muslim community is not. Their problem is not with Allah forsaking them. Their problem is with everyone here in the room forsaking them. That's where the problem lies. So the solution here is destigmatizing drug use, destigmatizing addiction, seeing it as a problem. It's an illness, it's a sickness. The brother who walks in with a broken leg, you put the chair up front for him and actually let him sit and pray salah. And that's for a broken leg. The brother with addiction is just as broken as the brother with the broken leg. Same break, it's just in a different area. For this guy, the break is here. For the other brother, the break is his leg. Why do you give the chair and let that brother pray up front row for his wound, but not the other guy? Why does he get kicked out and told, go to the street? That's the difference. That's what I'm highlighting. That's where we have to change. It's a difficult conversation to have as a community. Look yourself in the mirror and see where the problem comes from. That the youth are dying because of us. We're not giving them that platform, and we're not giving them that space, and we're not giving them the programming and the support they need here in the masjid for that. Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Society as a whole. And I like to tell you something that, I have been teaching in this New York City public school for past 23 years. And a lot of people, a lot of parents are turning in, they are asking the same kind of issues that you said, interconnectedness, and even many of us, we may not publicly disclose this, but many of us also suffering with that. So my general question is there any hotline that we can, the parents, you can suggest parents that they can contact to, they can go for counseling? I see often cases, parents are coming to me and asking what I should do. Whom should I turn to? What should I do at this point? This is the situation between me and my children. And apparently they have no clue where to go. So generally speaking, if you can leave us a phone number to contact with you, or is there any hotline number that we can refer to the parents so that they can contact you? And I'm fortunate that, I incidentally, I was passing by and my wife stopped by here for praying, and unfortunately I met you here. So please provide us the number, and because of the time constraint I cannot stay longer. I wish I had more questions from you to answer, but okay, so please do so, and thank you again. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chaudhry, Jislak here. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful question, actually. So a few things I'm going to recommend. So first and foremost is the national hotline that was just created for all mental health issues and problems, not just substance use, overdose, addiction, whatever it may be. But the national hotline that was created was whenever you have an emergency at home, whatever it may be, but if it's an emergency and you need the cops, you need an ambulance, you dial 911. 911 is what you dial if you need an ambulance, medical emergency, some brother's praying, he passes out, heart condition, seizure, whatever it is, or something happens, someone breaks in, someone has a weapon, and all that. 911 is the wing that you dial to get emergency EMS services, police or ambulance. For mental health related issues, there's a brand new number that was created, and this is for all things mental health, and that number is 988. Not 911, it's 988. 988 is the national hotline. 988 is also multicultural and also multilingual. So when you dial 988, you get connected to an operator. You actually tell the operator, can you connect me please to a Bangla-speaking operator? The operator will switch you to someone who speaks Bangla, and then you're able to actually communicate the need or whatever it is you feel you want, or whatever service you feel you have to have. So you can say that my child and I just had a huge argument. My child is really upset. My child told me they're going to kill themselves in anger towards me after the fight that we just had. I am worried for my child. I think my child's going to do something. So 988, instead of sending police over to your house, 988 will instead have an ambulance, EMS, and a social worker come. They're going to do a mental health assessment, and then from the mental health assessment, give you an appointment for a clinic or give you an appointment for a provider in the community. And you can request your provider to be someone who is from Bangladesh or someone who speaks Bangla or someone who is Muslim, and you can make the request for that. And then 988 will connect you to whichever clinic is in your area. In this area, I guess, around Jamaica. And then you'll be able to receive services for that. That's the first major recommendation that I have. The second major recommendation that I have is that there's a hotline that is designed by Muslims for Muslims, and the hotline is called Nasiha Hotline. So you can actually put that into Google, Nasiha Hotline, N-A-S-E-E-H-A. And Nasiha Hotline has two things. One, it's a clinic based in New York, where there are Muslim mental health providers that are there. And then two, it's a hotline where you can actually call or text in and actually have someone on the other line, a crisis operator, respond and speak to you. So these are like emergency services that I can recommend. For broader services, if you're looking for family counseling, marital counseling between you and your spouse, if there's fights between you and your spouse or your marriage is going through a great deal of difficulty, you can call in or you can text in or you can reach out. I'll give you my contact information too for that, and we can connect you to our network of Muslim mental health professionals that are in New York and can provide you for the services that you're looking for. Addiction services, same thing. We have a bunch of clinics and a bunch of detox units and rehab units that you can seek mental health counseling for and addiction services for right here in Queens and also in the greater NYC area. I can't promise there'll be Muslim staff, but I can tell you just as a Muslim mental health provider, there are a lot of us that are in the field. The only problem is that you guys don't know how many of us are in the field or where we even are. So that's where we have to help connect you towards those services. So that's something we can definitely help with with this, inshallah. So those are just my 2 cents. I can give, yeah, I can give you, which number, the crisis number? Yes. Maybe, but I don't think it's not necessary. That would be this number right here. I wish I don't have a projector or a screen, but I can give you the number at least. And the number is for Nasiha Mental Health. This is like a hotline for general counseling. The hotline for general counseling is 866 627 3342. So that's 866 627 3342. And this is for Nasiha Mental Health Counseling. This is a hotline based in Toronto, but it services Canada and the United States. And it's staffed by Muslim psychologists and Muslim social workers who specialize in mental. No, it's NASEEHA. Got it. Yes. Yes. No, here, grab it. Go for it.
I have a quick question. How can I find a common ground with my parents?
I need to know your parents. Find out what the common ground is.
I have a question. How can I find common ground with my parents?
Thank you. All right, so first and foremost, I don't know your parents. You know them better than I do. Wait, I hope you know them better than I do. So first thing I would say is find out what your parents are interested in. What do your parents actually like and enjoy doing? If your dad sits at home and watches the news or watches boring stuff on TV, generally speaking, and I have to ask, what is it your dad watches? What do you notice that he does at home when he comes home? What do you see him do when he comes home? When you see him come home and he's tired from work and he plops down, what does he do to actually occupy his time? Does he turn on the TV? Does he watch TV? What does he watch on TV? What does he actually find interest in when he's doing it? When he's sitting, does he read the newspaper? What does he read when he reads the newspaper? When he comes and sits at home, when he talks to your mom, what is he talking to your mom about? What is he actually doing that at home? And what I would tell you is that's the first step. Find out what it is that they do that they like or enjoy or unwind with, and then find a way for you to plug yourself into that. I'll give the example of TV. So my dad, man, he watches a bunch of odd things. My dad is really into these shows where cops are chasing people on the street, like, you know, like the shows where like the robber robs a bank and he's driving down, and there's a live camera, the helicopter is watching the car speed. My dad loves this. He loves this stuff. He turns it on, he watches it, he waits to see if the cops catch the guy, then he watches the cops run after the dude, chase him down, tase him, cuff him. He loves that. He really enjoys it. Is that what I like? It's weird. It's not what I would spend my time doing. But when my dad watches it, when I see him watching that show, I'll actually come and I'll sit. And I'll actually be like, oh, tell me about what's going on. And I'd be like, oh my God, Omar, this is crazy. You see this guy? Look at this dude. He stole like $20,000 or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, wow, that's crazy. I'll watch it with him. My dad and I are sitting together on a couch, sharing a moment, and I am showing interest in something that he's doing. It might not mean much to you. It feels weird. It's a super weird thing to do. But I can promise you, for him, it's probably the best feeling knowing his kid is sitting right next to him, doing something that he's doing. Your mom, same example. Watch when you come home, tell me what your mom says, what she does, what she occupies herself with, what kind of things does she enjoy, what kind of things does she occupy her time with. Find a way for you to start learning what she's learning or doing what she's doing and try to connect with it. For my mom is on her phone a lot, my mom is on Instagram. My mom loves watching Instagram like reels. She loves watching like these weird things where like little cats and dogs are like doing things and like whatever. It's like memes and whatever. So what do? I send her some. I try to look for it and I send her. And I think it's weird, but like I know she loves it. So this is my way of trying to make a connection to the two of them. What would I love? Me personally, I love playing with Lego. I love getting Lego sets and building Legos. I love Switch, my Nintendo Switch. I play it all the time. But what I hope and pray in my heart, I wish my mom and dad would do, I wish my mom and dad would actually sit next to me while I'm playing Switch and actually take a controller in their hand. And even if they die a million times, the best feeling in the world is that I get to game with my mom or dad. Has it happened yet? No, but I can try. It's a start. That's what I recommend. I'm not giving you anything other than that. That's what I recommend. So when you go home tonight, when you sit this week, I want you to look carefully, closely, see what patterns you can find, and then find a way to add yourself to that. Trust me on this. Every dad in the room listening to this would be shocked if you were to sit next to them and be like, oh, it's a cricket game, Mom. I don't know anything about cricket. Could you teach me? Huge. It makes a big difference. Even if it doesn't mean much to you, it means the world to them. Does that help? Does that give you an idea? Yeah? Yo, I love your question, dude. It's love hair, man. Thank you for that.
My sister has a question. So,
Oh, she does?
yeah, so I'm gonna give you this mic. It works. I'm gonna give her this mic.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just reverse the system.
Oh, reverse it.
Reverse it. No, but I don't understand what she's doing.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So this is a question from a young mom with young kids. So as you mentioned that there is no program or for youth or youth are not welcome in the JMC. So I personally felt like, not felt like I experienced, because every time I came for any program, I asked volunteers that if there's any program for moms with young kids, because these youth that we're talking about who are not maybe leading their life in an Islamic way, they didn't become like this within a day. It's because the way their parents were raising them since they were young kids. So I think it's very important for moms with young kids to have a lot of programs in this masjid, so moms can learn about Islam and they can raise their kids in a way that these kids, when they grow up, they are interested to learn about Islam and follow their lead their life in the way that a Muslim should be leading their life. So I believe that there should be programs for moms, and there should be experts who can lead the moms and teach the moms, so that moms and parents in general can learn about Islamic parenting and they can raise their kids in such a way.
That's a beautiful question, mashallah. I guess my answer to that is yes, you should definitely do that. I can give you the example that my wife has. So my wife, Shareef, is a psychotherapist. Her specialty is in mental health therapy. And she has a weekly women's group that she goes to. It's all women. Almost all of them are moms, very young mothers, and they bring their kids actually. And this is something outside, unfortunately, it's something outside the masjid, where they pick a different lady's home, and they have a small halaqah once a week where they go and they recite Quran to each other, they talk about tafsir, they talk about hadith, they talk about just general things that are bothering them or hurting them or affecting them, and they have a mental health professional, my wife, this therapist, who actually sits with them and actually provides mental health counseling and advice and services while they're there. And this happens once a week, every week, that these women come together and actually have this halaqah. If the masjid doesn't provide this for you, it doesn't mean you should wait for the masjid. It means that you should start it yourself and get it done. That's what my wife has found, mashallah, for herself. I love the fact that she does this, but this is what I would recommend for you guys. If you're looking for sister professionals to actually help you with this group or to help lead this group or be part of the group, then you can reach out, inshallah, and I can help connect you to a few sister professionals that I know or my wife knows for them. And then the last question that I was just asked, I'll just quickly touch upon that. And that question is about how does a parent connect with their kid when you have a zero clue what your kid is doing or what your kid is up to? The first thing I would tell you is that most youth here, I would imagine, probably live lives on their phone or live lives online, because that's pretty much how I grew up, was doing that. One of the things that I really loved and enjoyed was when my dad and I would connect over something that we had a shared interest in, or my dad didn't know much about, but he would sit and watch. And that was when I was gaming. So gaming for me was a big thing when I would sit and I would play. I remember I had my PS2, and I was playing on my PS2. And my dad would actually, he would pretend like he's not interested, but you could tell like he was watching my screen or watching what I was doing, and then he would come and sit and he would comment on my game. And he would say, can you tell me what this is, or can you tell me more about that? Oh, that was really cool. Can you tell me how you did that? Or whatever. And then what do you know? This was just my dad and I sharing a little moment. I know my dad won't play. I don't expect my dad to play with me. But the fact is, my dad actually sat in the room and actually asked me questions and showed an interest. That alone means the world to a kid. That means the world to them. That's amazing. Learn what it is. Learn what it is. You don't have to. I'm not asking you to be an expert, but I'm telling you that the conversation alone about this stuff means the world to someone. You can ask a kid like, "Oh, this is amazing. Can you tell me about like what you do on Fortnite?" Or like, "Oh, I watched a YouTube video about Fortnite and I didn't understand this. What's a KD ratio?" Imagine asking your kid this, what a KD ratio is, and your kid has to actually explain to you. It basically is the measure of how many kills like someone has, and like it's the measure of how good a player is. I mean, your kid is talking to you and having a conversation with you. This to me is amazing. I wish I could have this conversation, but I'm not having this conversation. So what I would want is, I would want parents to actually get engaged with your kid and learn the world your kid is in. Because they're lost in that world and you are completely in the dark about it. So shine a little light on that. Bring yourself into that world a bit. If your kid is like watching a Twitch stream, I don't even know if any of you elderly folks know what a Twitch stream is, but this is a good idea to learn what Twitch is and what someone does on Twitch and what streaming is and why someone can sit for hours and watch this. Sit, watch. The same advice I gave, which was if your dad is watching cricket, you have no clue what your dad is doing, sit next to your dad and ask questions and find out. And what do you know? You'd love it if your kid did that. So the same advice works the same way. Your kid is experiencing a world that you are clueless about. Get yourself a little bit of a clue. Ask. Be curious. Show interest. And if you do this, believe me, it makes a world of a difference. JMC Youth Group, when they come here and they meet once a week on Friday, actually ask a kid what you talked about in the halakha. And don't interrupt, just listen. Let your kid talk about, we talked about this, my friend talked about that, we brought this issue up, oh my God, we played like dodgeball. And you can ask them, what do you love about this? What do you like about it? Tell me more about it. Oh, you want to play dodgeball is what you like? Would you like to play dodgeball with me? Or do you think I could get you an actual dodgeball? This is how you do it. You've connected and hooked your kid on something, and now you're building a relationship. That's the advice I give to the elderly for that. It's my advice as a kid of what I wish my parents would help and do with me, and what I should do a better job with my parents with each other. I hope that helps. Better idea?
We have one question from the kids. Last question from the Wasif.
What up, bro? What's your question?
How can technology be used to strengthen bonds How can technology be used to strengthen bonds within a family?
How can technology be used to strengthen bonds within a family? Man, that's a tough question. There's a lot of things. I don't know. I mean, technology to me is a double-edged sword. Technology can do one of two things, which is either destroy a family or it can actually help build a family. It depends on what you use technology for. So a few things I'm going to comment on. First and foremost, one of the ways that technology can destroy a family, first is if you're using technology to actually hurt or harm yourself or hurt and harm your family. So for example, one of the worst uses that I've seen lately of technology misuse has been with youth falling into pornography addiction, which I think is probably pretty destructive for that. It's a weird thing because most of the uncles here probably don't even know how to engage with someone if they're talking with an OnlyFans model and they're engaging with someone and building an entire online life using technology that their parents are completely oblivious to. I mean, that's something I can point to and I can say, not only is this family being destroyed, but that kid is destroying his life too. The family doesn't even know that a kid is destroying his life this way. Technology is a very scary thing. My understanding of it is, the more you understand it, the more you learn about it, the better it actually is for you as a parent. So if your kid is online, if your kid is chronically online and constantly on their phone or constantly on the internet and constantly doing stuff, you need to find a way to get yourself there too. Find a way to get yourself there too. You can't be ignorant of this. Your kid is growing up like this, and your grandkids are even more so going to grow up in this. You will completely lose touch if that's the case. So first advice I would give for technology is, if there's going to be technology in the family, make sure that it's a collective use of that technology. For example, if you bought a TV and a TV is in your home, but the only people who use the TV is you, and you're the only one, you and your wife who watch and nobody else uses it, the kids don't use it, your kids are somewhere else. Your kids are on their phone, your kids are on their laptop, your kids are on a tablet, because they're not on your TV. You're not sharing a space with them on this stuff. They can look for it elsewhere and get it elsewhere. They don't need you and they don't need your TV. So what do? Make the TV something that actually is something that you can engage with everybody. How do you do that? The way I can tell you, which is set up a gaming platform or set up a console, attach it to your TV, let your kid play games using the living room TV, and then sit there with your kid and enjoy that time together. Allow there to be a connection to you and your kid and that. Secondly, if you have a computer at home, a desktop or a PC at home, set that PC up in a public area and not in a private room. That way, when your kid is on the TV, or when your kid is on the computer, or your kid is on a laptop or whatever, it's in a common area where you can see, they can see you, you can engage, you can have a conversation, and actually engage in this. One of the worst offenders of this is if you set up an entire gaming platform and a computer platform in the privacy of the kid's room. Is that kid ever going to leave that room? No. You're going to lose track of everything, and that kid's going to lose themselves in that. So it's important to make sure you're connected to this. Don't know what this laptop is or what your kid's doing on that laptop? Then the most important thing for you is to set up your own laptop and actually put a central area in your home where the family comes together to use technology together. Make it a bonding element. This is very difficult, the advice I'm giving, but it's the truth of what actually should be done in this particular case. It can be unifying, but it requires a connected effort between the kids and the parents to do
We
that.
have one more question.
I hope that answered the question, inshallah.
Yeah, this is the last one, I believe.
I don't know if you were listening or heard it, or should I use more technology to reach you? You heard it? That was super convincing, which is a lot to hear. Glad to hear it.
Tahsin.
Tahsin.
My question is, it's a very important question. How can we encourage open communication between families? Because many youngsters who are going through like tough times and like bad addictions are very shy with talking with their families because like their families may shame them, may yell at them, may not give them good advice and stuff. I'm not saying, like I felt that personally myself. I'm not saying because my family's like bad or anything, because you know I felt shy.
Don't worry, it's totally cool. I feel you. I know exactly where you're coming from. What I will tell you is that this is an incredible struggle that we have, which is how do you actually open up and talk to your parents about something when you know your parents are going to judge, or your parents are going to say something harsh, or your parents are not going to understand any of this stuff. One of the key examples of this is something that, I'm going to give an example of this, which is when you have a youth that is struggling with something. The struggle I'm going to give you is an obvious one, but it's something that I know the community is going to have difficulty with, which is, for example, if I as a guy am in school and I see a handsome dude and I think to myself, yo, that guy looks really handsome, and then the thought pops up in my head, hold up, I'm having a physical attraction to another guy. Am I gay? I don't even know, and I don't even have a concept of this in my head. But am I going to sit with my mom and dad and actually have a conversation with this thing that I experienced and actually have a conversation with it? No, I'm not. I'm not going to even, I will never, I'm not going to talk to you about this stuff. My mom and dad have no clue what I'm experiencing or what I'm going through. Who am I going to talk to? I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to my guys. And amongst us, our generation, it's actually cool to feel that way and think that way and be that way. There's nothing wrong. Actually, we'll support you on that. So I will go where I'm supported and where I have a voice and where I'm being heard. If I don't have that at home, I'm going to get it somewhere else. And I think that's the first thing I'm going to recommend, which is what we would call safe space. So safe space is where a child actually feels that they can talk about something with their parents and not feel judged, shamed, guilt, or embarrassment for it. And that's not your fault. It's actually not our fault. The fault actually falls on the parents for this, which is, why is your kid not talking to you about these things? Because you have not allowed your kid to talk about these things. And what that means is that you've done more talking as a parent than you've done listening. The most important thing your kid needs is not your words or your voice. What your kid needs is your ear, you to listen, you to actually hear them out, to understand, to ask questions about this stuff. That's an opportunity that we don't normally get. If your parents have never given you this, or it's rare that your parents give you this, you're not going to ask. You're not going to approach. And you as a parent are going to sit clueless, wondering why your kid doesn't talk to you. The reason why your kid doesn't talk to you is because it's not a safe space for you to say this stuff. They're going to think that you're going to judge them, you're going to be embarrassed for them, or you're going to say something about them, or you're going to put them down, or you're going to insult them, or you're going to get angry at them. So for them, your kids won't open up to you. They're not going to talk to you. They'd rather talk to someone who's not going to react that way for that. So how do we build, to answer your question, how do you actually build this communication? First and foremost, the answer is the parents. You guys have to change the way you talk to your kids, and the way you talk to your kids is to do something you have never done before as parents, which is actually emotionally open up and actually be emotionally vulnerable with your kids. The most powerful thing I think a parent can do is actually sit their kid down and actually tell their kid, this is my struggle, this was my difficulty, this is what I'm struggling with, what I'm having problems with. myself. When I was your age, this is what I had difficulty with. When I got older, I really had a hard time with this. I'm still struggling with this. I still have problems with this. And having your kids see you as a human being and not an authority figure over them, because then all you become is just boss to them. So the important thing is to actually emotionally connect and open up with your child. And what do you know? Your child is going to open up and emotionally connect with you, because you've allowed yourself to be open and honest with them, and your child will then be open and honest with you. It takes time. It's not an immediate thing that happens, but it builds. You build upon this for that. So that's the first thing I'm going to recommend, which is if your parents are not like that, I mean, that's unfortunate, but you can still try and connect with them and talk to them. And if you still fear that you're not going to understand, maybe it might be best to have an intermediary. So usually if you have your parents listen to a sheikh, or your parents listen to an imam, more so than would listen to you, maybe you can tell the imam and have the imam then talk to them. It's an indirect way of communication, but your parents still ultimately get the point or hear it, just not through you, which is unfortunate, but it's a reality that we have to live with, for that. So that's the first advice I give to the parents. Second advice I give to the kid, which is for our generation, it's extremely important to try and connect with your parents. And for your parents, try and make an effort to at least tell them where you're coming from and what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Even if you get judged, even if your parents are upset, even if your parents are not going to react the way you want to, the most important thing is communicating. Actually having the conversation and saying it. So for example, I'll give you my example. My example was, this was 2011. I got into medical school and I was a medical student. And while in med school, I failed 2 exams. And I actually got kicked out of med school. I was dismissed from medical school, I got kicked out. The hardest conversation for me at that time was sitting down with my mom and dad and actually telling my mom and dad that your eldest child, that you poured your time and effort and energy and everything into, flunked out and failed. And having this conversation with my mom and dad, I didn't feel safe in this conversation. I didn't feel ready to have this conversation. It was something very scary for me. And I took the first step and I had the conversation with them, and my parents, alhamdulillah, reacted okay. But if I held out of my heart that I'm never going to talk to them, I'm never going to open up, they can't know about this stuff, then it becomes a secret that I hold in my heart, and then it becomes a distance and a gap between my parents and I, and then I live the rest of my life living a lie, and my parents never actually knowing what I'm going through. That's the alternative in that case. I hope inshallah that helps.
Okay, shukran.
Or past time, I'm sorry.
Dr. Shareef, and I would like to thank all our participants to this program. It's very, I'm encouraged that we should do more program like that. Sure. And Dr. Shareef said he is available, inshallah, at least 3 times a year, 4 times a year.
I will try,
inshallah. And I would like to thank, Blooming Rose Rotary Club. Dr. Nasrin Khan is pivotal. She spent a lot of time and energy for this program. I would like to thank from Jamaica Muslim Center. And now, before the dinner, I will ask our Jamaica Muslim Center Board of Trustee Chairman, Dr. Nazmul Khan, give this, our appreciation certificate to Dr. Shareef.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Again, the attendance is such a huge attendance. I didn't expect. And it is such a great topic. I'm sure those who are here, you have enjoyed it, especially the kids. And Blooming Rose Rotary Club, headed by Dr. Nasrin Khan, as you heard. They have brought it here. And I will definitely, through our administration, ask them to come back again with similar or different kind of topic for the youth. And I'm sure they can do it better. And you just, as I said in the beginning, that you are from the both sides of the boat. That's why you could speak much better than a lot of us. Because you understood both sides of it. You faced on both trend of life. And thank you for such a nice speech. And this is the appreciation certificate from Rotary Club, presented to Omar Shareef MD, psychiatrist, in recognition of outstanding presentation on the communication improvement in Asian American family dynamics project in topic of family generational issue, February 16th, 2024. Nasrin Khan MD, Club President, Rotary Club from Blooming Rose, New York. This is. I asked the president to give the pin to Dr. Omar Shareef. He lost the pin already. This pin is more important than the certificate, by the way.
All of the youth, please go downstairs. We're gonna serve dinner over there, okay? All the youth downstairs.
Kids, we have youth. We have a sad news. Your director, Arif Chaudhry? Arif Chaudhry, he lost his grandma in Bangladesh. She was here, she was visiting Bangladesh, and he just lost his grandma. Please make dua for her. Yes. Please go in the basement. Thank you.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salam. Hayya ala salam. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
استووا استقيموا صووا صفوفكم تراصوا اعتدلوا سد الخلل الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه يسأل أيان يوم القيامة فإذا برق البصر وخسف القمر وجمع الشمس والقمر يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر كلا لا وزر إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر ينبأ الإنسان يومئذ بما قدم وأخر بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به إن علينا جمعه وقرآنه فإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه ثم إن علينا بيانه كلا بل تحبون العاجلة وتذرون الآخرة وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة ووجوه يومئذ باسرة تظن أن يفعل بها فاقرة كلا إذا بلغت التراقي وقيل من أراق وظن أنه الفراق والتفت الساق بالساق إلى ربك يومئذ المساق الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والتفت الساق بالساق إلى ربك يومئذ المساق فلا صدق ولا صلى ولكن كذب وتولى ثم ذهب إلى أهله يتمطى أولى لك فأولى ثم أولى لك فأولى أيحسب الإنسان أن يترك سدى ألم يك نطفة من مني يمنى ثم كان علقة فخلق فسوى فجعل منه الزوجين الذكر والأنثى أليس ذلك بقادر على أن يحيي الموتى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر طيبات السلام السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله استغفر الله اللهم اجعلنا اللهم اجعلنا اللهم انت السلام السلام علينا ربنا السلام دخلنا جنة الله السلام تبارك لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له اللهم أعنا بسم الله الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Brothers and sisters, we just listened to a beautiful presentation tonight after Maghrib about the importance of understanding how to communicate to our generations, to our new generation, and our kids, to the parents as well. And I think communication is very crucial, not only between parents and children, but also between Imma in the masajid and the Jama'at also, particularly our young generation. It is very important because communication is very crucial, and that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, even when He sent a prophet, He sent every prophet with the lisani qawmihi, with the language of the people. And language is not only spoken language, but also cultural language, social language, behavioral language. And that's what we need to learn, how to communicate and to relate ourselves to our youngsters, between elders and the youngsters. It's very important. And I think one of the Brother Shareef important point tonight is the importance of learning. And that's what the Quran says. Ta'aruf is not only between nations, but between generations as well. Between elders, between youngsters, is also ta'aruf is very important. Ta'aruf is very, very important, inshallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward our brother Dr. Shareef and reward all of you for those who are attending. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.